Elizabeth Smart was only 14 years old, living a seemingly ordinary life in Salt Lake City, Utah. Bright, curious, and full of energy, she was a teenager with dreams, ambitions, and a personality that lit up every room she entered. Her days were filled with school, music, friends, and family activities. She was loved by her parents, who saw her not just as a child, but as a source of pride and joy, a young girl full of potential and hope for the future. On the night of June 5, 2002, Elizabeth was in her bedroom, tucked in and preparing to sleep. The room was familiar and comforting: posters on the walls, books on the bedside table, her favorite stuffed animals beside her bed. Her parents were nearby, dining at a friend's home just a short distance away. Everything seemed normal. But in a terrifying instant, her life would change forever. That night, masked intruders broke into her home with precision and intent. They had planned carefully, choosing the time and method to avoid detection. In the darkness, Elizabeth was taken from her bed, the familiarity of home replaced with the unknown. She was forced into a situation beyond her comprehension, surrounded by strangers, removed from the safety of her family and home. The abduction sent immediate shockwaves through her family. Her parents quickly realized that Elizabeth was missing and contacted authorities. The situation escalated into a full-scale search, as the police launched a massive investigation, and alerts were issued nationwide. Elizabeth's disappearance was broadcast across the United States within hours. Television stations, newspapers, and radio outlets carried her story, and social media, though in its early days, became a tool for spreading awareness. Elizabeth's face was everywhere on posters, flyers, and news segments, mobilizing a community and eventually the entire nation. Police immediately secured the area, interviewed witnesses, and examined the family home for clues. But early challenges quickly became apparent. The intruders had left little forensic evidence, no clear eyewitnesses had seen the abduction, and the case lacked concrete leads. These factors complicated the investigation and created an atmosphere of uncertainty and fear. Meanwhile, the public rallied. Volunteers combed streets, neighborhoods, parks, and wooded areas. Flyers were distributed widely. Citizens reported sightings, many of which turned out to be false leads, but each tip contributed to the growing sense of urgency. Families, schools, and community groups became actively involved, and the search for Elizabeth was no longer just a family matter, it had become a national cause. The emotional toll on Elizabeth's parents was immense. Shock, fear, guilt, and helplessness overwhelmed them, but they remained determined to find their daughter. They gave interviews, pleaded with the public for information, and faced the intense scrutiny of both national and international media. Every day that passed without news weighed heavily on their hearts, amplifying their despair and worry. Elizabeth's disappearance also sparked widespread discussions about child safety, parenting vigilance, and community responsibility. Experts highlighted how even the safest environments could conceal dangers, urging families to adopt more rigorous safety measures. Schools and community organizations began teaching children about stranger danger, emergency responses, and situational awareness. For the audience following the case, Elizabeth was no longer just a missing child. She became a symbol of vulnerability, innocence, and the sudden fragility of safety. Her story captured the nation's attention, stirring fear, empathy, and outrage. It was a haunting reminder that a single night could change everything, and that sometimes, ordinary lives could be thrown into extraordinary crises without warning. This chapter focuses on the initial abduction and the immediate chaos it created, setting the stage for the larger story. The world watched as Elizabeth Smart vanished from her home, her family desperate and powerless, the nation mobilized, and a community awakened to the harsh realities of child abduction. By the end of the night, one fact was clear. The ordinary life of a bright, young girl had been abruptly replaced by uncertainty and fear, and her story would become one that the world would never forget.
Elizabeth Smart's abduction was not a brief, fleeting moment. It was the beginning of a terrifying ordeal that would stretch for 9 long months. From the very first night, she was removed from everything familiar, her home, her family, her sense of safety. Suddenly, the world she knew had been replaced with fear, uncertainty, and the overwhelming presence of strangers who sought to control her. The men who took Elizabeth were calculated and manipulative. They imposed strict rules, threats, and constant surveillance, ensuring she understood that resistance could have dire consequences. Yet, from the very start, Elizabeth's courage and intelligence set her apart. Though frightened, she quickly learned to navigate this hostile environment, paying attention to routines, voices, and moments of distraction. Her young mind became a tool for survival, constantly calculating how to endure the situation without provoking further danger. Elizabeth's resilience was extraordinary for a girl of just 14. She relied on observation and memory, noting the layout of the house, the movements of her captors, and any small detail that could become a future clue. She clung to the hope that one day she might be rescued, repeating silent affirmations to herself to maintain mental strength. In a world where every day presented new risks, her determination became a shield against despair. Despite the terror she faced, Elizabeth managed to retain a sense of self and identity. Her abductors sought to isolate her, cutting her off from friends, school, and family. They attempted to indoctrinate and manipulate her into submission. Yet Elizabeth refused to surrender completely. In private moments, she maintained her own thoughts, recited her favorite prayers, and recalled memories of home anchors that reminded her she was not defined by her captors' actions. Meanwhile, the outside world was fully aware of her disappearance. Media outlets ran daily updates, often broadcasting her photograph and descriptions nationwide. Volunteers, concerned citizens, and advocacy groups joined the search, offering tips and assistance to law enforcement. Posters and flyers were distributed across cities and towns, spreading her image and story to communities far and wide. The nation's collective attention ensured that Elizabeth's plight would not be ignored. Law enforcement faced extraordinary challenges in tracing her location. The kidnappers moved her multiple times to avoid detection, employing secrecy and deception. Investigators had to rely on sparse clues, witness statements, and the occasional tip from concerned citizens. The complexity of the case, combined with its emotional intensity, demanded precision, patience, and unwavering dedication from police officers who were under immense public scrutiny.
Despite the constant threat, Elizabeth's moments of bravery were pivotal. At times, she found opportunities to communicate her situation subtly, small signs of resistance or brief attempts to leave clues about her location. She memorized details that would later become critical in helping law enforcement understand the scope of her abduction. Every day she survived was a testament to her intelligence, observation skills, and sheer willpower. Her parents, meanwhile, continued to fight tirelessly. They made public appeals, gave interviews, and collaborated with authorities to spread awareness. Their unwavering advocacy, combined with relentless media attention, ensured that Elizabeth's story remained in the public eye. For Elizabeth, this indirect support was a lifeline. Knowing that the world had not forgotten her fueled her resilience and helped her endure the ordeal. As the months passed, the kidnapping began to take a physical and emotional toll on Elizabeth. Sleep deprivation, fear, and constant stress became daily challenges. The captors employed psychological tactics to instill fear, confusion, and dependency, yet Elizabeth learned to navigate these manipulations. She became attuned to their moods, predicting behaviors, and recognizing opportunities to protect herself. The broader context of the case also highlighted systemic challenges. Law enforcement agencies coordinated efforts across jurisdictions, sharing information while piecing together limited leads. Media coverage played a dual role, raising awareness and sometimes adding pressure that complicated investigative strategies. Elizabeth's survival required both personal courage and the persistent vigilance of the outside world. Ultimately, this chapter demonstrates the incredible strength of a young girl in the face of extreme adversity. Elizabeth's story during the months of her abduction is a study in resilience, intelligence, and hope. Every day she survived brought her closer to freedom and ensured that the world never stopped searching for her. By the end of this chapter, it is clear that Elizabeth Smart was more than a victim. She was a fighter, a strategist, a survivor. Her ordeal highlights both the horrors of abduction and the extraordinary power of human courage when confronted with seemingly insurmountable odds. After 9 months of unimaginable fear, isolation, and uncertainty, Elizabeth Smart's ordeal finally came to an end. In June 2003, thanks to a combination of courageous witnesses, diligent law enforcement work, and relentless public attention, Elizabeth was safely recovered. Her rescue was more than a personal triumph. It was a victory for justice, perseverance, and the collective effort of a nation that refused to forget a missing child. The moment of reunion with her parents was overwhelming. Tears, relief, and disbelief intermingled as Elizabeth returned home. Her parents had spent countless days in agony, haunted by the unknown, praying for their daughter's safe return. The family's reunion was broadcast worldwide, and for millions watching, it was a poignant reminder of the stakes in missing child cases. The public had invested emotionally in Elizabeth's survival, and her rescue brought hope to countless families facing similar tragedies. However, Elizabeth's journey did not end with her rescue. The psychological scars of abduction were deep and complex. 9 months of confinement, manipulation, and trauma left lasting effects on her emotional and mental well-being. Therapy, counseling, and intensive family support became crucial tools in helping her navigate recovery. The process was gradual, often painful, and required immense patience, courage, and determination. Elizabeth's recovery was not just about returning to normal routines, it was about reclaiming her sense of safety, trust, and autonomy. Through her recovery, Elizabeth emerged as a powerful voice for advocacy. She refused to let her story remain a private tragedy. Instead, she transformed her experience into a mission to help others, particularly missing children and families facing abduction. She became a public speaker, sharing her story to educate communities about child safety, resilience, and the importance of vigilance. Her words carried authenticity because they came from someone who had endured the unimaginable and survived. Elizabeth also became involved in legislative advocacy. She worked to promote laws and policies designed to protect children and improve the effectiveness of law enforcement in handling abduction cases. Her activism contributed to reforms in protocols for missing children, including better coordination between local and federal authorities, more efficient public alert systems, and heightened awareness campaigns. Elizabeth Smart became not just a survivor, but a catalyst for systemic change. Her story also challenged societal perceptions about victims of abduction. Often, victims are portrayed as helpless or passive. Elizabeth's experience, however, demonstrated remarkable agency, intelligence, and resilience. She had survived by observing, calculating, and sometimes resisting, even in subtle ways. Her narrative highlighted the strength of the human spirit, inspiring countless others to remain hopeful in the face of adversity. Internationally, Elizabeth's case became emblematic of both the dangers and the possibilities inherent in child safety advocacy. Media coverage, books, documentaries, and interviews spread her story beyond the United States. Parents, educators, and law enforcement agencies around the world took note of the lessons embedded in her experience. The case reinforced the critical importance of community vigilance, prompt reporting of suspicious activity, and the collective responsibility to protect vulnerable children. Elizabeth's legacy extends beyond her personal survival. It is a story of empowerment, courage, and transformation. By speaking out, she gave a voice to children who cannot speak for themselves. By advocating for policy reforms, she helped shape a safer environment for future generations. And by living her life with resilience and purpose, she showed the world that trauma, no matter how severe, can be met with strength and determination. Despite the fame and attention, Elizabeth has remained remarkably grounded. Her interviews reflect a commitment to awareness, not sensationalism. She continues to emphasize that her story is not just about her, it is about the countless missing children whose stories might never reach the headlines. Her work encourages communities to remain vigilant, parents to educate and protect, and authorities to respond swiftly and effectively when children go missing. Elizabeth Smart's life after her rescue demonstrates a remarkable journey from victim to advocate. Her experience is a testament to the power of hope, the necessity of public vigilance, and the resilience of the human spirit. It is also a reminder that every child deserves protection, that every family deserves support, and that society must prioritize justice, prevention, and accountability. As the world continues to remember Elizabeth's story, it is clear that her impact is profound and enduring. She transformed a personal nightmare into a platform for change. She gave courage to other survivors and hope to families still searching. Her advocacy work continues to educate, inspire, and challenge communities worldwide. Elizabeth Smart is no longer just a symbol of tragedy, she is a symbol of survival, strength, and unwavering commitment to justice. Her story teaches us that even in the darkest moments, resilience can prevail, courage can shine, and one individual's experience can ignite change across the world. Her life and legacy ensure that she is remembered not for the months she spent in fear, but for the decades she has spent fighting for others, proving that justice, hope, and advocacy can rise from even the most harrowing circumstances.